to another episode of The Punk Rock Raider. My name is Dirty D from the Dirty T, and I am the Punk Rock Raider. Let's jump into it. I've been on a bit of a hiatus. Just A, letting some news happen. B, I've been dealing with some serious fucking tooth pain. Gonna get something done about it. Not gonna be able to get my root canal until the 27th. But hey, I can push through it. It's only tooth pain. That's only something that, is one of the worst pains you can have and used to kill, millions of people before modern dentistry, but that's not a big deal. We can push through it. Got a lot to talk about. Coaching news, coaching interview news, firings. But first, we got to react to the college football playoffs because I didn't get to do that. And we had a huge, amazing game between Miami and Ole Miss, and that Trinidad Chambliss guy has been forced into the NFL draft at the moment. We'll see. He's fighting it, but depending on what Dante Moore does, quarterback 2, we'll have that conversation eventually. But man, great game. We will talk about the game, Oregon, Indiana, Dante Moore versus Fernando Mendoza. And I don't want to overreact, but Mendoza has been flawless in the playoffs. Dante Moore, I think, has had the prettier throws, but he has not been flawless. And both Mendoza and Indiana's defense, I think, put a kibosh to the argument of who was quarterback 1 in this class. If Dante Moore even comes out, I think what really happened was Fernando Mendoza showed he is ready to be an NFL quarterback. Dante Moore showed, I think, more talent and promise, but also that he is not ready to be an NFL quarterback. I firmly have Mendoza as quarterback 1. I stand by the things I've said before. I stand by the fact that Dante Moore is a more talented quarterback prospect. He would be quarterback 2 in this class, and I could see someone buying into his traits and his ceiling and his youth, plus his maturity, over the traits and talent of Mendoza. I could see that happening. I think it'd be a very small, I'd like a 5% chance of that happening. I could see it happening. I absolutely could see him returning to school and being a better prospect next year than Mendoza is this year, but I think he should return to school. I really think that's in his best interest. I just don't think he's ready. I think he looked more confused by some of the looks Indiana was giving him. And I also just don't think he had as many open looks. I think sometimes he held on to the ball a little too long. I think a couple of the big things weren't his fault, namely the fumble. The interception was absolutely his fault. Loved the response, but he had some great games. He still put up some stats, but most of it was already in garbage time. Indiana was unstoppable. That team was unstoppable. And while that whole team was unstoppable, Mendoza did have 1 or 2 things with, holding onto the ball a little too long, being a little careless, as far as fumbles go, leaving the ball out there to get knocked out. They both did, though. But Mendoza was almost flawless as a passer. He looked phenomenal. I still have questions about the ceiling. I still have questions about creating when things don't look good, when he needs to create a throw that isn't there, whether that be getting on the move, off a platform, around somebody. I still have those questions, but he's looked almost perfect in the playoffs. He deserves to be quarterback 1 in this class. He's, until proven otherwise, he's going to be the guy the Raiders draft number 1 overall. I think there is less than a 5% chance he isn't. And if Dante Moore goes back to school, less than a 1% chance. I will say could be a 1% chance, but it'll be less than 1%. So that's going to be the guy going forward. Getting into the show today, we're going to talk about some of the coaching news. John Harbaugh was fired after after the season, after the last video I had made. Um, Set a domino effect. Mike McDaniel was fired. And then today, Mike Tomlin announced he was stepping down. So we now have 10 open head coaching vacancies. I don't think I'm forgetting any. That's all off the top of my head. We've got 10. Am I missing one? I don't know. I might be missing one. Anyway, a lot of open vacancies. Um, we have been linked to Harbaugh. Apparently, he might interview. We've talked to him. That isn't official yet, so when that is, anything that's official, I will get to. I'm going to start today, though, just talking about. We're going to talk about the guys that we set up interviews with last week. The first cycle of coaching interviews that we have set and I believe have already completed. We're going to do this in like a few series. This will be part one. We'll do a part two, maybe a part three. We'll see what other coaching interviews we get set up. Maybe I'll even talk about the guys that we haven't set up with or didn't set up with, but I'll probably just stick to the people that we are interviewing. I won't do anything hypothetical except for maybe a sentence or two about like guys like, I don't know, Curt Cignetti that I think are worth calling. I don't think we will. So I'll just leave it there until we actually have something to talk about. So we're going to get into the guys that we have already interviewed, I believe, guys from the first cycle today, and then we'll do the second cycle probably tomorrow. Moving right into our candidates. All right, the first guy we have to talk about is Vance Joseph, the Broncos defense coordinator now. He's 53 years old. A little bit of backstory on him. He started off as a 49ers defensive back assistant in 2005, and then he was promoted to the defensive backs coach from 2006 all the way to 2010. He was also the Texans defensive back coach in 2011 to 2013, and they were top three in passing yards per game during his tenure. He was Bengals defensive back coach from 2014 to 2015 when they led the league with 41 interceptions during his tenure there. So then he got hired as the Dolphins defense coordinator in 2016. They were fourth in takeaways. That landed him the Broncos head coaching job from 2017 to 2018, where they weren't so good there. They were 11-21. I believe they went 5-11 and then 6-10. He was fired, moved on to be the Cardinals defensive coordinator from 2021 to 2022, and I think he finished out as the co-interim head coach in the 2022 season. He was then hired to be the Broncos defensive coordinator in 2023. Things didn't start so good. They finished that year well. He's been the defensive coordinator ever since, where they've been very, very good. So Vance Joseph, the more I researched him, I really appreciate how fantastic of a defensive mind he is. And I actually really love his mindset of defense. He's got 3-4 principles. He mostly lines up in like 3-4 multiples, I guess you would call it. He does like to mix up his looks, give you a lot of looks. He has worked with 4-3 base defenses before, but he primarily, especially as defense coordinator, has run 3-4 multiples. Most would characterize the coverage he does as man coverage, but I found a quote. The more I researched it, I found a quote that it blew me away with his philosophy on coverage and defense. He's talking about how it's very pressure based. So he said that it's pressure based with matchup principles outside and then zone inside. He compared it. I'm going to read a quote here. He was comparing it to a box and one defense in basketball. So he's saying that you're trying to get pressure up front, and then the outside corners were playing outside. Hey, we're trying to find matchups for any receivers. We're playing almost like man principles, matchup principles. But as you get further towards the inside of the defense, now we're playing zone. And they're able to create some really hard to read looks, really interesting looks, and really confuse quarterbacks, especially with all the havoc they're wreaking with their front, with their they don't even, I don't think they blitz a ton. I think they roll, from my understanding, call some simulated pressures, do a lot of things with that defensive line. Um, and like that defensive line's good, but I think something that's really underrated is like Zach Allen is an amazing player, but he wasn't the type of, like, he was a good player in Arizona. He wasn't what he is now. John Franklin Myers was a good player before he got to Denver. He wasn't what he is now. Nick Roach, no, he wasn't like a big time name. Um, their edge guys were mostly, mid round picks. A lot of them considered undersized or tweeners. Like, he's getting a lot out of guys that weren't considered high end talent, high end big free agents, big time pass rushers, and they were the best pass rushing team. Besides, I think they were ahead of the Texans, but them and the Texans were like the top two when it came to rushing the passer this year. The Jaguars were up there as well, but like what they're able to do. I mean, Nick Bonito is awesome, but he's a third round pick. He's considered undersized. Yeah, he's super athletic, super fast, but what they're able to do with kind of, I don't want to say, it's just not like the most prized draft picks, not the most, prized free agent signings. Like, it's super, super impressive the type of pressure he's been able to create with his defenses. I don't hate the idea of him as head coach as much as everyone else does. I'm not saying I love it. It's outside of my top 10 of all of the people, and then all of the candidates. And then if we're just talking about the 11 candidates that we've interviewed so far, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head where I'd rank it. We'll get to that when we get there, but it's definitely in the back half. But there are ideas I hate more, and you can pitch to me that when he got his first opportunity as a head coach, he was just too young. He was just too young. He just wasn't ready for it. I think it's actually really mature that he came back as a defensive coordinator after having been fired as a head coach. And if you want to tell me that he just wasn't prepared for the job yet, it was still early in his coaching career. He'd only been a coordinator for 1 year at that point. He'd been a defensive backs coach for a while, but only been a coordinator for 1 year. He was still maturing as a coach. Hey, you could sell me on that. I think it's more likely that he's just a good coordinator and he's not a head coach material type of guy. But you could sell me on that, and if he can bring in a star young offensive coordinator or a really good offensive coordinator, then I do think there's chance there could be success. You could at least sell me on it being a decent move. I'll give it a shot, and hey, I'll preach to everyone else to give it a shot. Like, more than likely, you're looking at maybe a Todd Bowles scenario, which like isn't great. I don't think Todd Bowles is a bad head coach. I don't think he's a good head coach. Um, so, we'll see. I don't think that he's anywhere near a favorite. I think he's more of a doing a due diligence. He's earned the right to be interviewed. He is coordinator for a rival of ours. We were able to interview him because they were the number 1 seed. We get more addition info on the team, and we get more addition info on people that work for them, including the next person we're going to talk about. So the next guy we're going to talk about is Davis Webb, Broncos quarterback coach. He's only 30 years old. He actually was drafted to play quarterback by the Giants in the third round of the 2017 draft, and he played quarterback in the NFL with the Giants, Jets, Bills, and the Giants again until 2022. He kind of, like, in 2022 was almost like quarterback coach and quarterback with the Giants. It was kind of a weird situation. He has been the Broncos quarterback coach since the 2023 season. He was hired right away as a quarterback coach, and he has been ever since. He has been given a lot of praise for his work with Bo Nix, and we interviewed him as a head coach. I think more than likely we would be wanting him to be a offensive coordinator. I think we would look at him more as like a tandem guy. Like, hey, we talked to him. Um, could we pair him with Vance Joseph? Could we pair him with maybe someone else that we hire that's a defensive mind? Um, I think that's the more likely scenario. We bring him in to work with our young number one overall pick quarterback, who's probably going to be Fernando Mendoza. Um, See if he can help him acclimate faster, maybe even develop him faster, maybe even pull some more tricks out of his bag. Who knows? I think that was the whole reason that you would bring in David Webb for an interview. If we were to give him a hire, maybe he is a guy that we're just early on that is a bright guy that could be the next Sean McVay, although I think John McVay did have offensive coordinator experience, but maybe he is the next Sean McVay. Who knows? He is a really well-regarded young mind. I would be hesitant, but I would be intrigued. That's, I guess, where I would leave that. Um, Moving on to the next guys, again, staying in the same idea of guys within the division. The next coach we're very familiar with, Matt Nagy, Chiefs offensive coordinator. He is 47 years old. Matt Nagy, he was a college quarterback and an AFL quarterback. He also was a high school coach during the time he was the AFL quarterback from 2001 to 2009. He became an Eagles assistant in 2009, where, funny enough, there was a game that I guess Kevin Cobb got hurt, and they tried to sign him to a contract to be the backup quarterback, even though he was a coach as well because he was an unpaid coach. And the NFL allowed it at first and then vetoed it right after they had gotten the deal set up. He stayed with the Eagles until Andy Reid got fired in 2012, and then Andy Reid became the head coach of the Chiefs, brought him over. He was the Chiefs quarterback coach until 2016, when then he became the co-offensive coordinator after the offensive coordinator got fired. He was promoted to offensive coordinator in 2017, and then was even given the play calling duties towards the end of the year after they'd gone on the skid. Went 4-1 as a play caller. That got him hired as a head coach by the Bears in 2018. He was with the Bears from 2018 to 2022, had a 34-33 record. He was 0-2 in the playoffs. He did win the Coach of the Year in 2018. Things flamed out, didn't go so well. Became the Chiefs assistant quarterback coach in 2022, and now he's back again, the Chiefs offensive coordinator. I don't like this idea of a hire. I hope, if someone else is dumb enough to give him the job, I just don't think. I think we've seen him enough as a head coach. I think we've seen him fail two young quarterbacks already. He absolutely failed Trubisky. You could argue if anyone would be successful there, but he failed Trubisky. He failed Justin Fields. I still think Justin Fields could be successful in the right place. I think it'd be really interesting to see him in Philadelphia, actually, and I think he could. I'm not going to go there, but my dad, I hated if I go there. Jalen Hurts is a winning quarterback, and Jalen Hurts deserves to be recognized for how good of a winning quarterback he is, regardless of what happened in the playoffs this week. Jalen Hurts is a Super Bowl winning quarterback and can win another Super Bowl. There, save myself, Dad. Anyway, I think in the right situation, I think if Justin Fields was on the Colts next year, I think we'd be talking about him the same way we were talking about Daniel Jones. But I digress. Matt Nagy failed both of those quarterbacks. Matt Nagy failed how he handled those situations. I don't want Matt Nagy. I want nothing to do with Matt Nagy. I I'm going to say that I would dislike this more than the previous two that we've talked about. I understand he had some success. That had more to do with Vic Fangio and their defense. That had more to do with trading for Khalil Mack. I don't think that had nearly as much to do with Matt Nagy and how Matt Nagy coached. In fact, I think he rightfully coached himself out of Chicago, and he should only be an offensive coordinator. And hey, this year, I don't think he was calling the plays, but it was their worst year of an offense that I remember. So I don't know why we're talking about Matt Nagy. I actually think there is value to interviewing him. I think it's just to get more of an inside scoop on a division rival. Hey, you have an opportunity to interview people from a division rival. You take that, and maybe you even boost his name as a head coaching candidate and someone else like the Titans. I don't think that's going to happen, actually. I know some people do, but Titans maybe hire him instead. I think Titans are going to go after a bigger, better name like a Mike McDaniel or Stefanski, who we will get to in a bit. But I digress. Moving on to the next guy. We finally have a name that's exciting to talk about. Klint Kubiak, Seahawks offensive coordinator. He's only 38 years old. Not the youngest guy we've talked about, but very young as a head coach. He's the son of Gary Kubiak, who is a longtime offensive coordinator, longtime head coach for the Texans. His son, Clint, I believe he did coach a little bit in college, but really his career in the NFL started as the Vikings quality control and assistant wide receiver coach from 2013 to 2014. He then got hired to be the University of Kansas wide receiver coach in 2015, became the Broncos offensive assistant and quarterback coach from 2016 to 2018, then went back to the Vikings. He was their quarterback coach in 2019, and then got hired as their offensive coordinator in 2021. I believe he became I think he was a interim offensive coordinator the year before, in 2020. Then went back to the Broncos, passing game coordinator in 2022. That wasn't a great year for the Broncos. So then he moves on to be the passing game coordinator for the 49ers in 2023. That went really well. Got him an offensive coordinator job with the Saints in 2024. That was going really well until Derek Carr got hurt. And then he jumped to the Seahawks this year, and they're the number one overall, the number one seed of the NFC. And Sam Darnold is last year was a good year for him, but a sustained good year, and they've done some really good things with the offense. I really like Klint Kubiak as an offensive mind. There's things he does really well, running 12 personnel, really committing to the running game. Things he schemes up with the running game really well. He comes from that Kubiak Shanahan tree. You see a lot of that influence in his game. We don't know how good of a head coach he would be. I think that would be the concern. Some people have drawn parallels to. I don't think you can call him a Brian Callahan, because the problem is Callahan never called plays before. Kubiak has called plays at least twice, I think 3 times now. He's been a 3-time offensive coordinator, so he has plenty of experience with that. Again, his dad was a coach. Some people questioned his demeanor. I think he gives me vibes of more like a Dave Canales, maybe even I can't think of his name, but Liam Cohen. Vibes of someone of that nature. I think he could be a successful head coach. I don't know as much about him though. I'm personally, I've never met the guy. This is going to come down to how the Raiders front office feels about him. And then I also think he's spent enough time in this league to have some legit connections, right? He's been with the Seahawks. They have some good defensive minds that come out of there. Even in Seattle right now, good defensive minds that come out of there. Even when he was with the Saints, there were some good defensive minds there. When he was with the Broncos, with Ahira Avero, actually, that could potentially be a pairing, because I think Avero's contract's up. So we'll eventually talk about Avero in another episode, but he's someone else that is in consideration that we've at least brought in. There's a connection there, I believe. They were on the same staff, so if you can pair him with a good defensive mind, right? Like that could potentially be a great hire. It could also be a guy that is in the Matt Nagy camp, but I think he's a better offensive mind and offensive coordinator than Matt Nagy. Sorry to throw you under the bus, man. I don't want Matt Nagy. We're done with Matt Nagy. Moving on to the next candidate of the cycle. This is going to be the last one we talk about today that I think is a legitimate candidate, and um, this is an exciting candidate to me. I know some people are not on board with Kevin Stefanski. He is at the moment a free agent. He was most recently, of course, the head coach of the Browns. He's only 43 years old. He's been coaching in the NFL since 2006, and he really has only coached for two teams. He started with the Vikings in 2006. He was an assistant for 3 years, assistant quarterback coach for 4 years, tight end coach for 2 years, running back coach for a year, quarterback coach for 2 years. He was then the interim offensive coordinator in 2018, became the full-time offensive coordinator in 2019, and then got hired to be the Browns head coach. So he coached with the Vikings from 2006 to 2020. That was through 3 different head coaching tenures. He then was the Browns head coach in 2020 to 2026. He went 45-56 as a head coach from the regular season, 1-2 in the playoffs. He was 2-time NFL Coach of the Year. Now, I know we already talked about a former Coach of the Year that I was not excited about. And hey, with Matt Nagy, sorry to say his name again. I've said it 3 times. He's going to pop up in the room or something. I guess you can make parallels between Nagy and Stefanski. They both won Coach of the Year their first year as a head coach, and things flamed out at the end. I do think that's kind of where the comparison should stop. I think, as I already said with Nagy, his successes had more to do with having Khalil Mack be a game wrecker, Roquan Smith, game wrecker. Argue that Fangio is the best defensive coordinator of this generation. It's one of the top 5 over the past 25 years, at least, right? Stefanski, I think, added more to the team actually being good. I don't think the offenses were very good during the Nagy tenure. He was supposed to be an offensive guy. He absolutely failed 2 quarterbacks. I don't think he brought anything to any quarterback that played for him as a head coach, where Stefanski, the first year of Baker Mayfield was really good. And you could definitely argue that the Deshaun Watson thing wasn't his fault. I refuse to put that on him. I don't think we would run into that problem whatsoever. I don't think there's going to be another scenario where our owner decides to bail on Mendoza for another big name quarterback that washes out that has 60 plus sexual assault allegations. I don't think that happens again. I don't think that's Stefanski's fault, and I think Stefanski did a lot of amazing things with the run game. Sure, he also has a great defense coordinator that he could hitch his name to. That I think is a plus. I don't think Nagy's bringing back Fangio, but I do think you would be able to get Jim Schwartz with Stefanski. And Stefanski, again, he did some really good things with the run game throughout his career that really actually helped Baker as well in his first year, and also helped Joe Flacco come back off of the fucking couch and bring the Browns to the playoffs and win in the second Coach of the Year, which Nagy did not do. So we don't need to have those comparisons. I actually think that Stefanski would be a really good hire. Out of the candidates that we've interviewed so far, it would be really high. Out of the people we're remaining to interview, it would be in the top four out of this cycle, top two. Out of everyone we could interview, maybe like closer to 5 or 6, but it would still be a good hire. I'd still be happy. He brings Jim Schwartz, brings Bill Callahan back to the Silver Black. Fuck yeah, bro. Yeah, that's a good hire. Like, don't be mad about it. It would be very good for Mendoza. I believe that he, unlike Maggie, he is a good head coach and is a top 32 head coach, and that it would absolutely set us up for success, at least for the next 5 years or so. And potentially he has a great rebound, and I don't think he was the overall problem with the Browns. Not at all. I'd be on board 100%. And like, if you really analyze it, you should too. Should there be people that maybe you're more excited about? Are there people I'm more excited about? Yes. Would I be like upset? No. And that's kind of how you should look at it. That's going to be it for today's show. Um, we're going to do another show. I'm probably going to release it tomorrow, talking about phase 2 of the candidates that we've interviewed so far. And then talking a little bit also about, some of the other guys that were fired and whether I think they would be fits a little bit, maybe just a line or two about it. My name is Dirty D from the Dirty T. If you haven't hit like and subscribe, please subscribe. Become a punk rock Raider yourself. Let's keep punk rock alive, and especially within Raider Nation. Let's keep the Raiders punk rock. Make the Raiders punk again. That should be my tagline, honestly. Let's make the Raiders punk again. I'm signing off. Have a great fucking night, and I will be giving you more good content coming in the next several days. Peace and rejoice, and rock on.